Hello and good morning. Welcome to the HRart Rise Morning Show. We are just on our second week of doing this Friday morning show, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I'm just gonna adjust the light ever so that you don't have to look at the glare on my glasses. I think that is better. Yes, it is. It's totally better. So sorry for being a few minutes late this morning. Hope you get to listen to some of the, I guess it's like Beats Christmas Jam. I don't know. I thought it was kind of really cool to listen to that. But I was getting things finalized for wanting to share them with you. There's a couple of things that I want to integrate into the HRart Rise Morning Show. And as you know, just in an effort to get it done. And I was so close, so I thought it was worth it to take a few extra minutes and make that happen. But before we get there, let's talk about what are we talking about this week. So what is our objective? Our objective today we will acknowledge the healing power of love. Love is given and often taken for granted. We come to expect that it will always be there. However, if we do not find a balance between giving and taking, it will inevitably lead to someone unable to continue giving us love. The years of devotion will have resulted in years of losing themselves. Now is a time to restore, remember, and respect the love you've been receiving. So that is the lesson that I want to get into today. But to get us kicked off and also to give people time to tune in, I want to introduce a new segment, which actually started. I work on the Leadership Arts Associates newsletter and trying to figure out what that newsletter looks like. I think I have it in a pretty good place. It's a monthly news and basically a collection of the curated content that has inspired and made us think as practitioners that we deliver every month. But as I was playing with that newsletter, one of the things that came to mind as an idea was these posts to ponder. So I find myself all the time screenshotting these posts and didn't know what to really do with them on social media, predominantly Instagram and LinkedIn, which is where I like to hang out in social media world. And so I had these collections of things that made me think, that were sources of inspiration, and I wanted to be able to share them, and I started putting them in the newsletter. However, I found that it's not as impactful, or maybe it was, I don't really know, but I found that I was missing the element of being able to explain why that spoke to me. And when I said that out loud, it felt like a natural compliment to come onto the HRart Rise Morning Show, because a lot of the things that I'm screenshotting, is that what you call them, or taking images on your phone, are stuff that we talk about fairly frequently here on this show. And so we're going to do that in this beautiful segment called Posts to Ponder for December 11th, 2020. So I have 5 that I want to share with you today. Let's take a look at the first one so you can get a sense. So this is a post from LinkedIn by Patrick Burns, who I'm not connected with. So that's the really cool kind of thing that you can see. Some of these are through people that I am connected with, and when they share their posts, these are things that I get to see. So it's kind of cool to see how our branches reach out. So Patrick Byrne, who is the founder at Patrick Byrne Company, he says, when thinking in the box brings out creativity. When the restaurant is small, but the owner is creative. And so this image really spoke to me about integrating that 6 feet, massive kind of amount of work that would go into this, I think, but it's probably how this restaurant was probably set up before an idea of a pandemic even occurred. But really, one of those things about creatively providing a solution that still fully aligns with the brand. Like, I would totally eat there, and I would not feel like I'm in the midst of a pandemic, that you're sitting me on an elevated position because you're trying to keep me 6 feet apart. in contrast to when we haven't been prepared and the ideas have been like shower curtains on rods and a lot of the things that we've been seeing. But this image just was so inviting, and talking about, when we're thinking about solutions and creativity, this is really what happens. And I wonder conceptually, when somebody talked about this, did they think it was a little out there and a little too weird? I don't know. So anyways, this image definitely caught my eye. Post number 2 is from author Todd Henry. If you have not read any of his books, I've only read one, The Accidental Creative. I absolutely loved it. If you're someone who is a creative, considers yourself a creative, whether it is an artist or an author or in a non-traditional sense, as an HR practitioner, as a leader of people, we have to be creative on a constant basis because we're dealing with people. Motivation myth number 3, because his newest book is called The Motivation Code. Motivation just naturally comes with the perfect job. Not true. While some jobs are more aligned with your motivation code, there are no perfect jobs. But knowing what drives you lets you seek environments that fit you well. This hit home for me. It hit home for me because I lived for a long time in the belief that there was this perfect job that I had to find, and I didn't understand why I could not find it. And that it was solely on the organization. They were solely accountable for making sure that I had what I needed to be satisfied. And there is a personal accountability piece, which has been maybe my greatest eye-opening experience becoming an entrepreneur. The greatest eye-opening experience is realizing how much I own in that situation. And just like I've said multiple times, that in any kind of relationship, it's a 50-50 meet in the middle for it to be truly successful. And I don't think that's any different when we're talking about our professional lives as well. So yes, the employer needs to do some work. Yes, the organization and my leader has to care, but we also have to do some work as well. We have to know what we need. We have to have that clarity. And a lot of the times when I work with coaching clients, we're identifying that clarity so that you can make the ask and then know if that employer is going to meet you in the middle. If they're not going to meet you there, and you know that this ask is something that you need to sustain and be satisfied and fulfilled, then that allows you to make decisions that you need to, whether transition happens. But it's a very intentional transition or transformation. Post number 3, Adam Karpiak. If you do not follow him and you are in HR, you should. I love his posts. I wish I knew who kind of introduced him to me. I follow him. I love his posts. Since I started kind of collecting for this Post to Ponder segment for the newsletter, he is probably my most frequent person that I screenshot to share later. This post has like kind of a mock seeking options, I guess you want to say. I am a job seeker seeking a company whose job description is for an employee, not an entire department. Talking about just how gender should not be an issue, but also the fact that your job description should be somewhat reasonable. So he has really nice, succinct posts and comments that really just hit home for me as a HR practitioner, but I think for many. As you can see, there's 2,000 interactions with this post whenever I screenshotted it, and 150 comments, and the dialogue that he has engaging below is awesome. So if you're a people watcher, which you've been lacking because of the pandemic, follow Adam Karpiak, because you can totally see all kinds of stuff happening in his feed. I love his feed. I love what he shares, love what he comments. Post number 4 from Karen Hurt. So Karen HRart is the co-author of the new book called Courageous Cultures, which we will be reading on the podcast for the summer book club, for my summer book club in 2021. So that's coming if you're a fan of the Heart of It podcast. And she posted this. She posts really great thought-provoking comments as well. And Karen's been on the podcast. If you want to hear from her directly, check out her episode on the Heart of It podcast. But according to Glassdoor's 2020 Politics at Work research, most U.S. employees believe political discussions are unacceptable at work. Obviously, I probably screenshotted this around when the election was actually occurring. And yet, 1 in 2 employees have done so. In fact, 28% report a coworker has tried to persuade them to change their political party preference in the past year. Not surprising. These contentious political conversations come at a cost. No matter what the outcome of this week's election, now you know when I kind of screenshotted this, we will need inclusive, collaborative, trusting relationships at work. David Dye, who is Karen's husband and the other author of Courageous Cultures, and I share thoughts about how to prevent politics from destroying work relationships. What would you add? Politics is really interesting in this past year because we really, I shouldn't even say in the last year, for a while now, since the last administration or this current administration took over, politics has become a constant conversation, and it is impacting the work environment. So for so long, and this is when I was originally trained in HR, it was separate. You know, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about politics, it's not professional. I think that rule is dissipating. And I think it's more so from a place of, how can you tell me that I can't talk about what I believe in all realms and who I am as an individual, yet you want the outcomes and the value that I bring because of those beliefs. And so I think this was inevitable as we keep talking about inclusive and diversity. So great kind of thought-provoking post to ponder and plant that seed, but knowing we should not underestimate these political discussions that are happening in our workplaces, because the ripple effect, we just got to be mindful and watch it. This is new landscape. And what is it doing to our relationships and our cultures and our teams? Last post for this week, one of the things that I love about Instagram, and you can do this on several social media platforms, is following hashtags. So I follow hashtag empath because I am an empath, and so I get to see all kinds of things that people post under that hashtag. This one really caught my eye. Don't let getting lonely make you reconnect with toxic people. You shouldn't drink poison just because you're thirsty. I know that in this holiday season, we combined with the pandemic, there's a huge pressure that's put out there to connect with people. But if you can't find anyone to connect, or you're in this midst of transition and you've been doing a lot of work on yourself, don't let it be the reason that you give yourself permission to essentially slide back and start revisiting relationships that you have cleared and do not serve you at all. I think you can totally hear that. Can you hear that? The alarm for my daughter, because her 8:30 call is going to be live. Give me 1 second here. Zoe, are you getting on your call? Just please, I'm on a call. Sorry about that. The joys of I'm home on Fridays with the kiddos watching virtual school right now. That starts at 8:30, and this is what happens when I push the HRart Rise Morning Show back. That now I run into when school is starting for my 6-year-old. So, but yes, so the toxic people in our life, when we've identified that, when you've had the strength to move on from that, don't let loneliness be a reason to slide back. In fact, find a way to transform the idea of being lonely to just the fact that you're alone in a space of stillness. I think that's an incredible gift that I know we have an innate, natural desire to connect with people. But at the same token, I as much as it is that innate connection to, we need to find time to connect with ourselves. And even that, getting that greater clarity of how we connect to ourselves before we connect with others opens us up to have such greater, deeper bonds. Which brings me to what we're talking about today. The healing power of love. Love is given and often taken for granted. We come to expect that it will always be there, but we need to find the balance. Many years ago, not so many years ago, but a few years ago, I was working with a client who was experiencing mammoth success in their business, and all of their dreams were coming true. At the same time, their marriage was going in the opposite direction of the success they were having in their business. And they had almost established peace with the fact that they could not sustain both. Life is about a balance of give and take. Once we lose that balance, we lose something. If I focus solely on my marriage and never look at my business again, I'll lose my business. If I focus solely on my business and never at my marriage, I will lose my marriage, my friends, those personal relationships. That's why we talk about this work-life balance. It's this dance that we have to master. It's also why we find people who just pick one and then completely eliminate the idea of having the other. And maybe this message is just to say to you that that's what happened and that was your coping strategy, but you can have both. But it's being able to do this dance. And I remember, a couple years ago when I was working with this client, I said, can you honestly tell me that in 10 years, if you continue down this path of success and you get everything that you want, are you going to be 100% happy that you let this relationship go? And he said yes. And I said, I hope that is your truth. Many of us take relationships for granted because we meet people who have established a high level of almost unconditional love for us. But at the end of the day, it's still a balance. It's still a constant us taking. And how much is there to take from that individual before they need to be filled up as well? Love is one of the most powerful healing things. The people who love me have sustained me through everything. Everything. But that comes with me consciously choosing that. And I'm not the best at it. I'm not. I have a natural tendency. My internal GPS wants to take me towards work and immerse myself. And sometimes I find myself having these inner conversations of saying life would be so much easier if you eliminated that personal side. If you didn't have to worry about those bonds and you could just focus on your work. But those people make me who I am. They keep me grounded. They push me. They challenge me. I would not be who I am without them. And so I need to make sure that I care for them, that I give and put into that bucket as well. And not only that, I need to make sure that I understand how to give to them. Just because they have mastered how to give to me and they've made that a priority, I have to do the same for them. The years of devotion will have resulted in years of losing themselves. They have spent years of devotion, giving and giving, that they can lose their identity. They can get lost in this devotion of love for you. And if you're fortunate enough to have someone like that in their life that loves you so much, you've got to bring that balance back for them so that they can flourish and thrive just as they have wanted all of that for you. And this can be a significant other. This could be your parent, a close family member, a best friend. These people around us that love us. Balance is necessary for us to sustain those deeper bonds. Recently, I went through a couple of weeks where some of my closest friends were going through challenges. Just so happens as we're riding the wave that they're all going through these tough times at the same time. And it demands, especially when I have high work capacities, high demands on work, when that personal side is asking, you still got to show up. That's important, and that's a decision in that moment. If I choose not to show up in those moments, that's when I could lose those relationships forever. Might not happen like this, but it will start. So I challenge you to think of now as a time to restore, remember, and respect the love you've been receiving. If there's anything that I have come to view the holiday season as, is that this is a time to restore myself and my bonds with the people around me, to really take a moment to say how much I love you. I spend so much time thinking about gifts and crafting these gifts. That is one of the ways that I like to express my love. And I've had to put boundaries around that because I obviously now I'm so grateful for so many people as I've continued to awaken and open my heart that I would look like Santa with all of the gifts that I want to give away. And so I have to find other ways to express that love. But during this time that can be lonely, can be a reminder of loved ones that are lost. Shift it to respecting and restoring those who are here and love you today. And if you feel like you're in a situation where you don't know who those people are, which I promise you, there are people who love you around you. I promise you. They may not be in your definition of what that role should look like or be showing up as, but there are people who love you. As an HR practitioner who worked in organizations and today get to go in and out of organizations and work with individuals, I have a deep love for my clients and the people in those organizations and the work that they do. There is someone who loves you. But if you are struggling with that, the greatest place to start is the love for yourself. And sometimes I wish that I had the time to get that right, not right, but stronger and more clear, so that I could show up and be a better version of myself for these other people who have chosen to love me and give me their love. So that is my lesson and words for today. Next week, we're going to talk about entering the new year following our heart. We have an event that we host in January. It's the last Friday of the month of January. I'm really excited because this week, obviously, with the current environment, we have to go virtual. So And wherever you are, you can join us for this. But it's time to partake in a trust exercise with our intuition. Let's enter the new year with little expectations, but more so openness. Let's enter the new year believing that we are guided rather than attempting to control and define our destined achievements. Routinely, we go into the new year establishing goals, believing that we know what's best. After just saying everything that I just said about needing more time to connect with myself so that I can be my best version, so that hopefully I can make those decisions, that I don't need all these other people who help me become the best version of myself. But that's not the reality. That's not the reality. That's not the humanness of us. And so then we enter this year thinking that we can figure it all out. We need to have a connection to something that we can explain to really guide us on how to enter this new year. And to do that, we have to be open. And that's what I want to talk about next week. So next week on the HRart Rise Morning Show, we will talk about entering the new year with an openness. It will be our final episode for the year because I'm going to be taking off the week of Christmas and I think the week after for vacation. But we'll talk about that next week. But once again, I'm so grateful to have you here with me this morning, joining me live, watching the replay. I hope that you loved the new segment of Post to Ponder. And if you have any posts that resonate with you that you would love to share, make sure you send those to me at Samm, S-A-M-M, at leadershipsart.com, telling me how that post resonated with you. Would love to integrate that into a future show. And yeah, have a great weekend. Take care of you.